to go over to it's good old Instagram. So it's going live on all platforms, but Instagram takes a moment because it has its own vibe. So if you're here, just wait 1 second. We are waiting to go live on Instagram as well, and it takes its sweet time. Hold on, almost up. We are live on Instagram. We are live on all. Okay, so go live. We are live on everything. So welcome to Levels Without Limits. I am your host, Amanda Marino, and I am the owner of Next Level Wellness and Behavioral Health and AmandaMarinoSpeaks.com. And I am here today with a guest who I am really excited about. Sometimes I'm, really excited about someone. And Brad, I am so happy to have you here today. Brad is someone who I feel like I've had a really solid connection with from afar, virtually, whether, just supporting one another from afar and just really kind of being fans of one another from afar. Right. And you sent me your books. I happen to have not the one we're discussing today, but I do have one of your books. It was on this book stand here in my bedroom. So that shows you I mean business. But so Brad, I'd love for you to just do an introduction of who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive deeper into, our topic, which is the audacity to be you, which is.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's an honor to talk to you. You're right. We've been mutual fans of each other for a long time. So I'm really glad to be here. I think my background starts, and I won't go into great detail, but my background starts as an adolescent patient in therapy myself. So, after the, it's a doorway for many of us. So after struggles with drugs, alcohol, mental health as a teenager, dropping out of high school, even,
Same.
I got my life together. And in fact, a friend said to me when I was 20 years old, "You'd make a great therapist." And I almost got in a fight with him. I was so angry because of what I'd been forced to do before that. But when I went to college, I realized pretty quickly that this was the calling for the rest of my life. So I became a therapist. After one semester, I switched my major. I knew what I wanted to do for my entire life, which I feel so grateful that I learned what I wanted to do so early. I started with some friends. I started a therapy program, a wilderness therapy program, which we ran for nearly 30 years. But what I found for my
one, I'm assuming, not the Paris Hiltons or these.
No.
A good one.
And I think what I learned early on, which kind of goes with what you just asked, was that the most impact I could have on a family was working with the parents. So I pivoted at one point and became the family programming specialist, which led to my podcast, which led to me writing the book that you just held up, and led to what I do now, which is I run therapeutic intensives for the non-identified patient, for the family member, the loved one, the parent, the spouse of the struggling individual. So we bring them into our location in northern Utah. We do a 5-day, 7-person intensive. And now I spend my time teaching, talking to the non-identified patient, to the codependent, to the one who's not acutely struggling, but those loved ones that are surrounding them for the most part.
And they are a huge part of this. And it's so, family work is beyond important. It is a core essential. And I just can share with you that recently I've had, some families that kind of refused, and it just blew up the whole process. And it was devastating to me because I'm like, if you just do these few things, it's going to help change your life, make huge changes for your loved one. I actually even had a parent say, there's nothing, I'm going to try to say it with a straight face. There's nothing that I've done that I could do better. And there's nothing that I can do to do better that my child is this way because they went to the wrong school and they met the wrong people. And I said, okay, we all can find ways we can do better, right? Without blaming, but taking ownership. Okay, well, maybe I've been maybe I've been smothering them or whatever, but the family work is so important. I really have struggled with these specific 2 families that the family just would not. And, it really, these 2 hurt my heart. I try to really keep, of course we're humans, but I try to really keep it separate. But when the family wouldn't meet with our team psychologist and wouldn't meet with the parent coach, was refusing. It sucks. It's so
It's
sad.
so sad. I love what Abraham Tversky says in Addictive Thinking. He makes this wonderful point that the reasons that the non-identified patient has for not going into treatment are the exact same reasons that the addict has for not going into treatment, which is, I don't have a problem. It's not my problem. These people aren't like me. I don't need help. And so
Yes.
when you pan out and look at it from that perspective, you realize we're bumping up against shame with everybody in the system all the time. And
Yeah.
it's really sad.
I fix my loved one and send them back right.
Right.
It needs to change. And that's just so I mean, like, I can't tell you how many times I've tried to refer people to your families, to your intensives and things like that. And it's really, really difficult, like, to get them to do that. Not all. I mean, I've had some families that I'm like, wow, like, you are really in it to win it. Like, thank you.
Right.
I'm like, thank you so much, because you are helping so much of this process by being willing to do the work.
Yeah.
So you have your Ph.D. or Ph.D. What is your doctorate in? And I know that, like, you said your calling was to become a therapist, but can you tell me a little bit more of your?
Yeah. Because I was the identified patient growing up.
Yes.
I was really prone to thinking about the issues working with systems. So my degrees, I have a master's and a PhD in marriage and family therapy. So I wanted to work with the system, because as the child who was the symptom bearer in the family, I knew what a heavy, lonely burden that was, what it felt like to be everybody else's project. So I wanted to come from that place and speak to the parents, the families, the family members that aren't the focal point, and invite them into this systemic change like you're talking about.
Absolutely. And it is, and listen, this is anyone that works in behavioral health. This is like, kind of, we all know this, but if you're non-behavioral health, which is who we hope that we can reach today, right? Someone who does not know about these things, that is when families, when the identified person who is getting, like, say, whether they're in deep therapy, whether they're in a program, or like they're in a custom program, kind of like what we'll create for people that have been to lots of treatment, whatever they're doing, the identified loved one, the identified person, when they start getting better, you can see all these other things flowing within the family system. I remember when I did, it was very similar. I was so bad that nobody could tell how bad anyone else was. And then when I was better than everyone else, like, did their own work too. Thank God, within my family. My friend Alan from South Africa, who owns Freeman House, is saying hello. If you are here, please say hello. Please ask questions to Dr. Reedy, because you have an absolute brilliant gem on here. So take this opportunity. If you are here, if you have questions about family systems, if you have questions about anything that we're talking about, please take this time. And if you're shy and you don't want to, ask here, DM him later or DM me, and I'll make sure he gets it. So we want to make this an open forum for you to say hello and also ask the questions you need.
Thank you.
So the audacity to be you. Tell me a little bit about that.
It came out of my lecturing and my teaching that I do when I travel. And as I was talking to a group of parents, specifically in New York this one evening, and I was talking about what's required to hold the child, to have the capacity to sit with and listen to really difficult things. One of in fact, two parents almost simultaneously, two mothers said, "What about me? What about what I need?" And the subsequent question was, what about the fact that sometimes I feel like a doormat? So I began to think that while I understand the task in a system is to be able to listen to hard things, that really what it requires is to have a sense of self first.
Yes.
And to go back and to understand our wounding and how we were taught to be a certain way or to not be a certain way. So I realized that to become yourself, and this is kind of the thesis, to become yourself is the task in therapy as I see it. Not to become good or better or beyond reproach, but to become who you are was the greatest liberation, the greatest kind of aim in our mental health. So I talk about this idea that in this kind of work, the audacity to be you, you don't get to be right or good or win anymore, but you do get to be a self, which is so much better.
So much better. Who cares about being, at this point, I don't care about being right. I was the first one to take ownership just to have peace. Like, I want peace.
Right.
And so I love that. And the audacity to be you, listen, doesn't come natural, like, in this culture, in this world that we're in. So, like, how do people, if they are trying to lean into themselves or leaning into themselves, where do you recommend like a starting place?
That's a really good question. I think I do like having people start off at the most simple and the easiest entry point for them. So when somebody joins like the podcast that I do and starts to listen to the sensibility, the consciousness that I'm teaching, when
Yeah.
somebody reads one of the books, so you can start anywhere. And I've had so many people, Amanda, who have come to me in a therapeutic setting who have said, I started with the podcast listening by myself because I didn't want to do it in public. So for me, any step you can take to find the piece that you're looking for. And what I find is that what you think is going to be the solution, it becomes something else once you get into it and you realize that the project is your own healing. The project is your own serenity. And when you realize that, you begin to understand the contribution you can make to a struggling child, spouse, or sibling by bringing your regulated nervous system. So any way in is fine, but ultimately we realize that the work is ours and the work is taking responsibility for our serenity and not making that our child's or the addict's responsibility, because they're struggling already. And then to carry our serenity on top of whatever it is they're carrying is a crushing load for them. So any way you can take that journey to look at yourself and to say, how might I be a part of this system, this dynamic? How might I be unconsciously contributing to it? Is any way that works, any way that gets you there is fine with me.
Yeah, and I think this goes for the human race in general, and life, and family systems, and partnerships, and I think this goes for everybody too. This is a message not just for people in our space, but this is a message for anybody. I love that. So we do have a question from Mr. Freeman, who so his program is in South Africa, and I when I went there, I was blown away. He picks up clients, the owner, from the airport. Okay, let's start with that. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't hear that. So what exactly is a family system, and why is it so important in healing?
I think the one thing about Homo sapiens that make us quite unique is that our context shapes us. We have to belong to a group to survive, historically speaking, in evolutionary terms. Yes. The thing that makes us survive and kind of prosper is our connection to other people, both practically and also emotionally. So it's the people that one would consider to be their context. And so it could be your nuclear family inside of your home. You might have grandparents. It's anybody that you surround yourself with, because how they think, Amanda, and feel about you becomes how you think and feel about yourself. So we begin to see that the child adapts, adjusts, behaves, shows up in a way to assure connection to the caregivers, to the people in their family. And anything that threatens that connection, like anger or big feelings, is something to be gotten rid of. So that family system, that context that shapes you, that is around you. So that Alan's question is very great, because it doesn't necessarily follow along these discrete lines that we think of. It can be, I think one of the most maybe underreported impacts on people are siblings, for example.
Yes.
And so the siblings are often part of that, but it could be a neighbor. It could be, in my case, my uncle, for whom I have a tattoo on my shoulder, is as much a part of what I would consider my family system, that close system, as my father, who was less present than him. So it's different for everybody, but it's the people, the context, the soup that you were cooked in growing up.
Absolutely. And that's, in today's world, like, family systems are just so wild and
I know,
non-conventional or historic, how they were historical. Like, my step family is much closer to me than my biological family.
Sure.
I love my dad. I didn't meet him till later in life. But so I was 7 and didn't develop a relationship with him till I was 13. Then I was in my troubled years. And then,
Sure.
We had 6 good years together before he passed away. But my stepfather, his family is like, I go visit my aunt in California every year. She's like the closest family I have, and she's not my bio family, right? And then I have a blended family household now, so, and then I have great relationships with my kids' dads, 2 kids' dads, 2 ex-husbands, and they're 2 of my dearest friends and supports. And my kids don't come from broken homes. They come from double the love, I say.
Right.
And I love teaching co-parenting, because if you can just set aside your anger, resentment, whatever, towards your ex, and focus on the love of your child, you can move mountains.
Yeah, that's a fact.
My son's 20, almost 21 years old. And like, he's just such a well-rounded human. He's not from a broken home.
Right.
He's not. So, yeah. So the authenticity to be you. Can you put it up since I don't have one?
Here is that book.
This is the one I have, which, listen, this has been my life's purpose. So we got both on screen at once. Ooh, what a cool picture that would be. So tell me like what like made you, like, what was your calling? Because I'm writing a book. So what was your calling to write this book, and what was your, first, let's start with that.
You know, people, when I was doing a lot of teaching, and I started my podcast in 2007. So I had been doing it for a while, and people kept saying to me, you're saying a lot of the same things.
I started in 17 and I thought I was an OG.
And so some people would say to me, you should write this down because you're repeating yourself a lot. Like, it'd be helpful. And I thought, why would I write there's so many parenting books out there. Does the world need one more? And what would I have to say that hasn't been said? And I began to meditate on that for a period of weeks. And it came to me, I have something to tell that nobody else in the world can tell, which is my story.
Amen. Doesn't matter.
So I realized I was going to tell my story as a patient, as now a parent of children who have struggled with mental health and addiction, and then as a therapist who has this wonderful vantage point to observe heroic families and heroic parents who are willing to put themselves into the work. So it was this idea that my story would make a difference in people's lives, that they could relate to it. And sometimes I doubt that. And then I get emails like you do. I get text DMs like you do, where people are saying, you thought your story was so unique, and it's so much like my story that I was so happy to find myself out there in somebody else. And to me, that makes it all worth it.
Right. And of course, we all, and for anyone, we all question and doubt ourselves. But like, if you are like Brad and you have that calling and that passion, you think, oh, please walk through that, because whatever you're trying, whatever you want, no one is you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one is you, and you have a message, regardless if there's 1,000 books on whatever out there.
Yeah.
Yours is important, and I know it's helped a lot of people, you know. And so you felt that, you know, you're doing the podcast, you felt like putting it into there. Like, and what was your journey of writing it? Like, you
know, it's funny because I wrote the chapters years before I ended up deciding to having the courage to publish them. In fact, a friend came to me and said, where's this book that you've been talking about? And I said, well, it's collecting dust on my shelf. And he said, let me see it and let me show it to the publisher that I've worked with. And he showed it to Judith Regan, who's a publisher out of New York. And she called me on a Friday and said, I want to publish your book. Let's talk Monday. And it was the most life-affirming experience in the world. But the key was, I was talking to my therapist who's written about 40 books. And she said, and I was struggling at one point, of course. And she said, Brad, you have to be willing to write crap. If you're willing to write crap, you can write. If you edit while you're writing and trying to write well or something good, you won't be able to do it, because those are two different energies. The writing, the creative energy, and the editing energy are kind of at odds.
That's great advice, you know.
So I learned to write crap, and I can write a lot. And then the work is to edit, of course.
Would you say messy? Like, I don't think crap. I think messy.
Well, anything that makes me doubt myself, I realize, okay, that's the task. Keep going. Yeah. Keep writing. No matter what voice comes in your head that tries to pull you off that task, even just being distracted by doing something else, because as writers know, you can find a million things to do when it's time to write. So it's just the idea that whatever the judgment comes into your head, I learned to observe that voice and to say, I hear you. I know you're coming. I know that's what you're going to say. And I'm just going to keep writing without editing.
Yeah. I've wanted to write a book for, 15 years. And I'm actually, like in the first 6 months of doing it, it took me that long.
Yeah.
I'm not someone that's I have like ADHD tendencies. So like, I am like that person that'll be doing some over here. And, a bird, a rabbit, like 1,000 ideas, and also I've lived for 45 years old. I've lived a lot of lives. And to like figure out what to narrow it down to is super, super hard for me.
Yeah.
Just like my TED talk, like when I wrote the like stuff out, I could do like 10, 20 TED talks on my experience. Right. So I love that of pushing through. That's a good message too with anything. Don't stop. Okay. Yeah. You can pause, life can have shifts, but keep going with whatever your mission is. And your like yours in this instance is your book. Just going to chime over to the Q&A. We have Brad Webster, addiction counselor. He's excited to be here. We have Isabella. Hi, if someone realizes their family system is unhealthy, what is the first step towards change? And I think that there's probably, I think all family systems have some touch. I can't say there's anyone I've met that can be like, oh no, your family's perfect. That's not realistic. So yeah. I think that it's okay to have some unhealthy family systems going on.
Yeah, yeah. There's something I teach in The Journey of the Heroic Parent, my first book, which is you can't not dent your children. You can't not dent your children. Everybody's human, and by that nature, you're going to come up short. So I think the first thing is to realize that, and what I do in my writing and in my podcast is I share a lot of my idiocy constantly. And that's not about self-disgust or self-loathing. That's about confidence. Like, I feel confident enough to say that I'm an idiot. I feel confident enough to say that I don't know. So I think the first thing is to realize you're not alone, and then to find people. If you don't have money, if that's a barrier to psychotherapy, Al-Anon, CODA, Families Anonymous are wonderful groups where you can sit and share and not be judged and just be seen and understood. Find people that want to see you and understand you, not people that want to fix you, is my advice.
What about if they're not someone that's in the substance or mental health? Like, what do you know? Because I know on my, like, and I'd love to talk to you about adding, I have like a free resource page of like all the different support groups. So I guess maybe CODA or
Families Anonymous.
And then also I'm trying to think of for people that aren't in the recovery realm, like the options. And then there's that one ACOA, which used to be Adult Children of Alcoholics, but now they've changed it to and dysfunctional families.
Right.
You don't have to necessarily. So there's definite. So I think like what you're saying is like therapy is great. Family therapy intensives would be like the top,
yes.
Right? Everybody engaging in their own, and then also family, I think would be the ideal dream. And then going to a week intensive would be like the best of the best. Right. And then if you can't do that, then start with your own individual therapy and see where you can make changes, kind of like you had said, like, so I think that would be another way. And then, invite, like I've invited my loved ones to my therapy sessions.
Sure.
To discuss certain things that are hard to like talk about just one-on-one, and having that neutral third party is really, really helpful.
I think ultimately kind of a mindset shift to answer Isabella's question is you have to be open to the idea that things are operating that you're not conscious of. If you're thinking that you have it all handled and you have it all figured out, then there's something deeper than that. And so for me, you have to be willing to go and sit and to listen to people who have a different level of consciousness, who are farther along this path, because you begin to hear, see, and feel things that you weren't conscious of that are really driving your behaviors. And that often comes from your own childhood, from your own wounding. So you have to find somewhere where it's safe to look back, not for blame, but for understanding and for liberation from whatever did happen to you, because something happened to all of us that was less than ideal at some point. And
I just, before we go on to the next question, what you had said, like we're not going to not something to our children. What was the quote? What is your exact words?
You cannot not dent your children.
So I used to say my goal as a mom, because I come from very big trauma, 4 to 7 sexual abuse, domestic violence, running, being on the go, hiding, being stalked, and then watching my sister get abducted in front of me. He hired a guy to blend in with the lawn men, so like I went through all of that stuff at like such a young age. So I was like, I became a mom at 23 years old, and I was like, my goal is to not F up my kid.
Yeah.
Not going to. So I used to like have this thing, like I'm going to be the bat, like do this perfect. Right.
Yeah.
And like, I realized, okay, I just don't want to mess them up that bad. Like I want to just do the best that I can and show up, like that my kids know I'm emotionally present. They know that I'm true to my word. These are what are like is important to me. Spending quality time, like really quality time with them, knowing that they can tell me anything and that we can get through anything together as long as they're honest.
Sure.
And so it's really worked well for me. Like my kids, I think, are incredible. Other people think they're incredible, but of course I'm not. Like, listen, there's going to be a dent, right?
Right.
I am not. This is my first go around at this, right? My first time being now a parent of a 20-year-old and a parent of a 20-year-old boy, almost 21, and 13-year-old girl, almost 14. Like I just took a week-long intentional trip with her after we did a family trip to LA, our blended family. And then then my fiance and his kids went home. My daughter and I drove up the coast of California up to Sausalito with multiple stops. And that was an intentional trip to really get to know one another, share things with her I've never shared, just really develop. It was an intentional trip to
That's beautiful.
With the versions of ourselves, perimenopausal mother, teenager.
Yeah.
Let's get to know each other on a deeper level. So yes, we are going to make mistakes along the way, but this is our, we're human, and like it's okay that like I really thought that I could try to do this when because I was so young and just
Amanda, there's a idea in the Audacity to Be You that I talk about, which is you don't get to win, you get to choose how to lose. And I think that that's something that I think about every day, because I think we want to be good. We want to do so much therapy work that we're beyond reproach. We really do want to be good, but the problem with that is if I need to be good as a father, even as a therapist or as a spouse, then your anger at me or your hurt at me, directed at me that I've caused, I will have to make that your problem, your fault. My adult daughter, who is a clinical psychologist, Emma Reedy June, she said that the greatest love that a parent shows is the willingness to be cast as the villain in the child's story.
Amen.
So to be able to accept and see your darkness so that you can be present with your child's pain, anger, sadness, big feelings, especially when they're directed toward you, that's the gift of the work, is that I have the capacity now to have sorted out myself well enough that I can sit with you. And my youngest right now, getting ready for college, it's been this weird kind of blessing the last few months, and it's pretty conscious on our family's part. She's been spending a lot of time getting ready for college and kind of doing an inventory of the ways that we hurt her, the ways that I hurt her. And I'm learning to just stay present and listen to the story. And when I hear an example of a story where I hurt her or a theme where I hurt her, and I could just be with her, apologize, acknowledge it, she just simply says thank you and letting it go. And so we have to at some point have an audience for the things that happen to us, that hurt us. And especially when they're more subtle, when they're kind of the small T traumas, we need to be able to tell a story to somebody where it gets heard, to be able to free ourselves from the dynamics that story holds us hostage with.
Yeah, I remember, what brought up for me was, I left my daughter's dad, and when she was 9, so the therapist it's all recommended, don't say who left who, just try to,
Sure.
Of course my 9-year-old's like, who's idea within 2 seconds, whose idea is this? And I wasn't going to lie, I owned it. And then I told my son, it wasn't even his father, but he was very close, very close to his family. His dad is a great dad too. So it was just like this great stepfather. And so when I told my son, I didn't think that it would really affect him the way it did. And both of them were very, very angry at me.
Sure.
They were very confused because there was no arguing. There was no he wasn't abusive. He wasn't a cheater. He's a really, really good man. It was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to do in my life was leave a good man. But I knew it was what needed, and it was the right thing to do. So I set a boundary with my children. I said, you are allowed to be angry at me. You're allowed to share your feelings with me of I said, but I will not allow disrespect.
Sure.
That's just where we, you don't, I will hold space for you. And I understand, and that was, it was one of the toughest things to go through. But like when we got through it, now we're like on another level closer than ever.
Yeah.
Um,
Beautiful story.
I know that you have, you connected with my dear friend, one of my closest friends, Essen. So when Essen met my son, like she's like just joking with him, like, so what's your trauma? Da, 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 da. He goes, he has this thing. When my mom went to Jamaica when I was 5 years old for a month to do a yoga teacher training, like he like says it as a joke, but I wonder if there's like parts of it that's real for him. I mean, he was with all family, he was fine, but like he's like, my mom abandoned me and I'll never forget it. And like him and Essence, they were sitting right in here, about it. So if that's the thing he thinks is the biggest thing, then we're okay. But yes, I love what you said about just allowing your kids to feel that they can tell you, like that. And I don't think that that's super common, Brad. Like,
I was once teaching a workshop. I want to get to Brad's question, but I was teaching a workshop in New York, and my daughter, she's really good at some parts of what I do and better than me. So I could take a break, and she came in during this 2-day workshop. And as she began, she said, leaving my family's dysfunctional patterns causes me great guilt. And I playfully, I was like, hey, wait a second. It's my show. You're talking about me. I'm your family system. But she was right. It was an accurate. She said, leaving my family system causes me, or the dysfunction of my system causes me great guilt. So I go to therapy so my therapist can help me carry that guilt. So psychotherapy for me is this experience of over and over again finding myself through self-compassion, because the more I develop self-compassion, the more I'm able to see myself, that my level of self-judgment and my level of self-awareness are exactly the same. Because if I don't have compassion for parts of myself, I won't be able to see them. I'll need them to not be true about myself. And
how beautiful that like you all can share that and not like no one's offended. No one is, and there's space held for that. Like that is like goals, for me at least, like in like open, authentic, like I don't hide stuff from my children. I mean, obviously age appropriate things like that, like, but I just think that that's like that you and your daughter like presenting in that manner, like that's just so awesome. That's so beautiful.
I'm so grateful to be able to be present with all of them in that thing, because then they want to be around me the rest of the time too, and it's wonderful.
Exactly. That's just beautiful. I just have to say, like, that's so touching. So let's get to Brad's question here. What was there a defining moment in your own life that changed the way you approached therapy and healing? Because you've been doing this a while, so I would assume that you talking about consciousness, the way that you move is I think like brilliant and different than a lot of clinicians. And I work with so many clinicians. I partner with them, in the work that I do. So I'd love to hear your answer to Brad's question.
Before I answer the question, what's the rule for profanity on this? Because this involves
say whatever you want.
All right. I was separated from my wife. We were separated I instigated it. I knew that the way it was going wasn't working. But I also wasn't ready to leave it completely, because I just couldn't find what was going to bring me joy and happiness and connection. At any point, sometime during that period, 2011, I was talking to my therapist, who I still see today, who I started seeing in 1999. This is about 2011. I was coming to therapy trying to confess something that I had done to somebody. I don't know what it was, but I had done something to somebody in my life that I had hurt, and I was ashamed of what I had done, and I was stuttering and halting to confess it. And my therapist, Jamie, said very gently, she said, Brad, I don't think you know what's happening here. Now, I had a Ph.D. at the time.
Well, were you trying to go confession, like you're going to like, a priest at a Catholic church kind of?
I think that's there's a good parallel there. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was going to confess whatever I had done, kind of like a fifth step, confessing to somebody what you've done. And she said, I don't think you maybe understand what we're doing here. She said, if you came in here and told me you were fucking a chicken, I would assume you had a good reason, and I would just want to understand. And at that moment, Brad Webster, everything changed. Then I understood then I understood the project. The project was to see and hold my children, see and hold my clients, not shape them up the way that I think they needed to be. And when I could do that, provide a safe context for them, they could come to terms with themselves, and whatever symptoms that they were exhibiting that were just masking this wound would eventually unravel. So it was this moment. There are others, Brad, but it was this moment in my own psychotherapy that radically kind of marked a change in my approach to parenting, to relationships, and to therapy.
So the takeaway of that was fucking the chicken conversation is what changed after PhD.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yes, we're raw and unfiltered here. I mean, yes, okay. I mean, maybe some people may not like it. If you don't, sorry, too bad.
Yeah.
I'm past trying to make other people happy. Okay. I needed to hear that from Isabel. Thank you so much. I think that's where we are with the questions for now. We're good. So what would you, so if someone like, wants to get your book and they're tithinking, like, what are a few bullet point takeaways that they will gain from first the Audacity to Be You? We'll start with that, and then we'll talk a little bit about the parenting one.
In the Audacity to Be You, the subtitle is "Learning to Love Your Horrible Rotten Self."
Learning to love your whole self.
Horrible rotten self.
Horrible rotten self. Okay.
Learning to love your horrible rotten self. So the big takeaway from the Audacity to Be You is the parts of yourself that you're ashamed of, that you don't have access to, or that you deny. Those are the parts of yourself that also have your gifts, the things that make you very, very unique. And so you have to, the message of the Audacity to Be You is that the parts of yourself that you're ashamed of aren't really horrible and bad. They just were something that your context, that the big people growing up told you was unacceptable. So the first bullet point is you've got to find a place where the project is to find you and not to fix you. And by finding you, you end up getting healed. So find a place that's non-judgmental. Find a group of people who can look upon whatever you're doing compassionately without judgment, and find and spend as much time as you can with them. I think that what works so well with the 12-step groups is you come in and you confess this horrible litany of things that you've done, and the energy in that room is, you're in the right place, sit next to me, you belong.
Yeah, me too. I've done worse.
Yes, I've done worse. That ain't nothing. So you've got to find people like that. And I think the biggest shift in the Audacity to Be You for me is, it's not about, like I said, the epigraph at the beginning of the book said, why were each of us taught the notion of being correct when the very notion ensured our failure in the world? This is not about being good. This is about being whole. Wow. Carl Jung's idea about, I would rather be whole than good. That's what this is about. But to do that, you've got to look at things that you have shoved under the bed and into the closet. And in those places, when we shove aspects of our personality into the dark, they mutate and become distorted and come out as, we call them our demons. We call them our addictions. We call them our mental health symptoms.
Ugly ways. Yeah.
So we sit and we listen to those demons, and we listen to their stories. We listen to those symptoms without trying to fix them. And in listening to them, they transform. That's the message of the Audacity to Be You. It's not about getting gooder or better. It's about becoming more yourself. And that's going to be a messy, imperfect, and terrifying process.
Yeah. I love how you like good and bad. Like, I hate those words. I just don't think that there's like good and bad. And like, I try to use that in like a lot of things that I do, like with eating disorders, even like there's no good and bad foods. There's like healthy foods, and then there's like treats or things that we, so like I try to, I love you getting rid of the good and bad, because that's just like, that's some society crap that's somewhere along the way. Like, and I used to I wanted to be really bad when I was younger, because that like gave me the thrill. And then I wanted to be like perfect. And that drastic change, it's like difference. And now I just want to be me.
Be.
And people think like, I don't know if people think what they think of me before they know me, but like, I got it all together and I never struggle. And like, I've had an era of a shitstorm lately. I'm not even gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
It's been heavy, and it's like, God, I get it. I'm tough, but like, how much can I handle? Like, how much do you think I can handle here?
I know.
Give me a breather in between like all of it. So, and then I have to like take a pause and take time for myself and take, okay, what do I need? And like, I think, I've been on a journey of healing since 2007. So like, I thankfully sometimes it's doing nothing and sitting with it, right? And
Right.
sometimes it's taking an action and taking actions and therapy and like doing, there's so many different ways, but people have to get to, people don't get have to, they get to in their healing explore what works for me.
Yeah.
What works for me.
You know, man, I think there's something you touched on that I want to kind of piggyback on, which is this might be one of my hottest takes, I guess, one of my most difficult takes, which is if you get healthy, you, me, anybody, if you get healthy, you're going to feel guilt. It's going to feel wrong to you. It will feel bad to you to get healthy because
And really, if you've been really sick. Is that for every person or like?
I think much more mild than that. Even if you are in any family, to set a healthy boundary is a great risk. Right? Like let's just talk about boundaries. Setting boundaries, the reason that people, and I know people love to clarify this clever distinction between shame and guilt. I don't make the distinction that people make. I think both of them are kind of just a matter of intensity. And what I know is the families I work with, the individuals I work with, when they're up against something, some task, some next step in their journey, and I ask them, they say, I know what to do and I didn't do it, or I know what to do but I can't do it. And I say, why? It's one of two things. It's usually fear and guilt. I feel guilty for doing that thing, for saying no, for saying I can't, for saying this is my limit. So I think one of the things we have to completely eradicate is the idea that guilt is associated with morality and conscience, because it's not. Everybody listening to my voice can identify at least one thing very easily that they could do in their life that would cause them guilt that would be healthy.
Yeah.
So guilt has to go.
Shame or oof. That prevented me from, getting better for a long time because I had so much guilt over how I showed up as a mom for the first 18 months of my son's life.
Yeah.
And if anyone out there is listening and like the guilt and the shame is holding you back, please know that like there's a way through.
Yeah.
That the guilt and shame can be lessened, can be lightened, and you can get through it.
Yeah.
And don't let guilt and shame and whatever story your brain is telling you over and over, don't let that stop you. Like you can get through. You don't have to just survive. You can actually thrive.
Yeah.
No matter what you've been through. No matter what you've been through.
Yep.
And you're not alone. Like people, that's why like one of the things for me is the hardest for when I hear, because I talk very openly about sexual abuse. And like in certain, it's not uncomfortable for me, like for you to hear me, but a lot of times people are just like, oh my, like they get uncomfortable.
Right.
When someone tells me that they've never told anyone because they weren't believed when they were younger, someone didn't believe them. Like to me, that is the worst.
Yes.
Not be heard, seen, or believed by someone who loved you is so. If you need to tell someone anything like that, I mean, like you said, technology today, like sometimes it's, people were listening to your podcast before they, however long before they reached out to you, like you can send one of us a DM, like if you need to get something. I mean, listen, the greatest thing is to go to therapy or is to take the actions, but like starting with like opening up or like, hey, I would love to tell someone. I've had people tell me and that frees them.
Yeah.
I hear them. I will hear you and I will believe you and I will support you. But it kills me when I hear that that I can't talk about it because I wasn't believed when I was there, or no one believed me. They blamed me. They blamed me. They said it was my fault because I dressed this way or whatever the thing is. But that's like a whole nother level of trauma that is just beyond for me.
See, I think that's one of your great gifts is your authenticity. And I think that's why we're fans of each other, because as authentic as you are online and publicly, because you've done your work, you're not sharing this stuff for the first time. Like you have a foundation of work that supports that disclosure to the public. I think people find themselves in you consistently and feel not so alone. And that gives the Homo sapien, I use that word because it's basic to all of us. It gives the Homo sapien the kind of foundation, the courage to go out there and do these very, very scary things like walk into a support group or pick up a book, a self-help book, and begin reading and considering how to unravel this pain that we're carrying around.
Yeah. And the healing journey is ugly and messy and sometimes beautiful and blissful, but like, it is not like I'm just like skipping around every day and like life is, la-di-da. Like it's hard. It's hard being a business owner. It's hard being a woman in leadership in this field. It's hard showing up some days when I don't want to get out of bed and I just want to hide from the world. Like there are things, like it's life. Life has ups and downs, and there's very real moments that are really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
And try to talk about them, without like verbally, bleh, on the internet. Like, I don't know if you've seen it. It's not really, I don't see it as much anymore, but people used to like just go on like a rant on Facebook back in the day of like their whole, like, so I try not to do that, but I do want to share the different versions because like right now, like I said, I'm in a season where it's like, I made a list of like, because yesterday I was like, I need to make a list of like all the stuff that's gone on, just because like I want to take a look at it and kind of, because I have therapy today, so I want to be able to go to my therapist and be like, okay, I don't want it all to mush into one thing and me be like, do you notice that like trauma likes to come and like play together? Like if there's comes up, then this wants to come join it, and this wants to come join it. Let's all make it into one big messy thing, So I'm trying to like work through that. It's not, a lot of the things aren't my choice or things that I've done. They're just things that are going on and inspired. Mm-hmm. They're weighing heavily on me. And listen, I've been messed up because of it. And I want to be real with people like that. Like, I think I don't want people to look at any of my stuff or be like, oh, she's got to look at her. Or she's lucky. No, I've busted my behind, continue to, and I have lots of ugly.
Yeah, that's a gift that you give to people for sure.
Like I remember I had a flight and I just was not, like the anxiety of packing has become harder. It's become worse for me the more I travel. I don't know why. I need to get a system with this or like get someone to help me pack or something. But I went in my closet. I was so overwhelmed. I went in my closet, moved my flight to like the evening, and just, I have a beanbag in there. I did a meditation and I passed out, and nobody was home. So it was like, it was deprivation. So I woke up, I was like, where am I? Oh, I'm in my closet. Okay. I like did a reset. Closet, because I needed complete silence, darkness, like complete shutdown. And then I went and got on that plane later that day and I was okay.
Yeah. Nice work.
Sometimes me and my girl, Sarah, my business partner, sometimes you have to have a closet meltdown.
Yeah, right. Sometimes you wake up and you're in your closet. That's a fact.
I have. That's like my closet. My closet's my like one place in the house. It's
I love that.
That's like my piece.
I love it. Yeah.
So if people want to find you, Brad, how can they find you? Like you're on all socials. Is your podcast still active?
Yeah. I have about 1,500 episodes. You can go. My podcast is called Finding You, the Finding You podcast with Dr. Brad Reedy.
Oh, the Finding You
podcast. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm Dr. Brad Reedy on Instagram, TikTok, and of course my Facebook profile is just my name. So and LinkedIn also. So yeah, and if you Google me, it'll show up. For all of that will show up.
Googleable. I know I'm Googleable too. My daughter was one that found that out a few years ago. She's like, Mom, you're a TV personality. I was like, what? I just didn't know. And then how about your programs? Because on some of your programs, I'd love your because I know you have some things have shifted and changed and added. So can you share different? So if people are looking for help, like what kind of programming do you offer?
The flagship program.
All of the umbrellas of different things.
Our program is called Finding You Program. So you can go to findingyouprograms.com. But our flagship program is the Finding You Intensive, which is a 5-day, 7-person, 2-therapist, psychodrama experiential dive into your family of origin, into your history. And then the second half is understanding, kind of making the connection between what happened to you and the challenges that you're facing today. So that's a great springboard for people who say, what is my work? Or a great accelerator for people who've been in traditional therapy and want to move it forward at an emotional level, to really want to have an emotional experience with their history, not just an intellectual one. So that's our flagship program. We also do coaching, we do workshops, we do.
Really quick, can you share like a couple of the modalities or things that you do in that program? It's like for someone that may not know like modalities, just because like I like to try to also speak to the people that don't know anything about this stuff,
Yeah.
right? So people that are watching this may have no idea about therapy or anything. So could you share a couple of things that happens
Yeah.
in the program?
Our primary modality is psychodrama, which is just role playing. If you've heard of talking to an empty chair, or talking to somebody who's sitting in for, let's say, your mother or your father, and having a conversation with them as if they are your mother or father. So the first big piece of work that everybody does is they do a family of origin role play psychodrama, where the various people in their family of origin, and they choose who that is. They have conversations with them. They tell them the things that they needed to tell them that they couldn't say when they were young. But what's magical about it, what really makes the difference, is when we reverse roles. So if I talk to my father, who in my case abandoned me, essentially, he wasn't around, and I said to him, it wasn't okay, and the absence you left, I want to tell you how it impacted me. If I say that to my father, I switch roles, and then I respond as if I am my father back when I was young. So when I'm a therapist watching somebody embody their mother or their father or sibling and respond back to what they would say, then I kind of know what your childhood felt like. I know what it felt like to be you and to have your feelings and your thoughts, because I can see it happening, playing it out in real time. And then everybody watching, Amanda, as you well know, will say almost to a person, I get more out of watching other people do their family of origin drama than I even got out of mine, because you can see it more clearly when it's somebody else.
Totally.
So we take a psychodynamic approach, which means Freud, Jung, the depth psychologist, the attachment theorists, and we say it's not about, we don't do this so you can necessarily repair it real quickly, because this is a lifelong process, but we do it so you know what your project is. Now you know why talking to your child who's struggling with addiction is a struggle. You have some glimpse, because the context, the model that you were shown, you're trying to kind of recreate with some changes and it's not working. Or the conflict that you're having with your spouse is because you're afraid of admitting to needs. But when you were young, having needs was an absolute burden to your parents. So you're being asked to confront your most terrifying childhood wound, for example.
Yes.
So it's really about giving people a clarity. They don't come fixed and solved. They come with a really clear contact with, this is my work, what my project. When I got out of my first intensive as a participant,
yeah,
I came out, the adage that I came out with was, I'm a liar. I've been a liar my whole life, meaning I'm a people pleaser.
right.
I want to tell people what they want to hear, and I don't even know what I need, because as a child of a single mother who was overwhelmed, my needs had no place in that family. I had to attend to her needs, be her therapist, be her spouse. So to ask me in my marriage to own what I need is to ask me to confront the most terrifying experience of my entire life, which was being a child of a single mother who was overwhelmed and frantic with how she was going to pay bills by the end of the month. And so I had to get small.
And common as far as that stuff. Okay, I'm just going to go rogue on this one, and you can say no, but could we do a quick example of a role play? Would you be okay with that?
Sure, of course, of course.
I think it would be really cool.
Okay.
And you lead it and just tell me what to do.
Okay. Pick a time or a period in childhood, any time, pick a age, and tell me what that age is that you would go back to, if you could go back to.
Like, I want to go back there, or
like if you could time travel back to and visit your family at 10 years old or 15 years old or 5 years old, if you could time travel and go visit your father, mother, family at a certain point of time when you were a certain age, what would you pick?
Like, am I looking for something to work on, or something that is like a happy thing?
Something that matters to you. I don't really have a opinion about what kind of energy, but if you could go back, if I said, I will grant you ability to time travel and you can go back and talk to one of your parents, what time period would you want to go back to?
The first thing that pops in my head is when I was like being raised with my mom, my aunt, and my godmother.
Mm-hmm.
Because my godmother was really a core essential person. I lost her when I was 18. So I would go back to like when my mom was like, a single mom. My sister was around. We had kind of gotten through that whole messy trauma, and like my godmother and my aunt and my mom were pretty much raising me.
And what age were you around that time? What year was that?
I think around 9.
Okay, so what I would say is, I want you to, if you could imagine going back to when you were 9 years old, take a moment to imagine that, and talking to your mother when you were 9 years old, And if you could say a few things to her, just whatever's in your heart, whatever you need to say to her, if you go back and talk to that mother when you were 9, what would you say to her?
Thank you for getting us out of the hell. Um, and it was very, it was very hard. Your life was threatened, but you did, eventually got us out and gave us a chance, to not get killed by this man, to not have any further trauma. And I think that you're so brave for doing what you did. And thank you for raising me with my aunt and my godmother to start until she got remarried. But,
Okay.
Thank you, because a lot of moms don't make that choice. Not because they don't want to, but they're scared and they're not capable. No, my mom did. Thank you, Mom.
Finish the sentence to your mother. What you showed me, the example that you showed me, helped me in my later life by
I'm sorry, say that again.
what you did, the things that you did to help me, showed me later on in life as a mother. It showed me
That no matter what goes on, I can get through hard things, that I can make hard decisions as a mother, and that I can make sure my children are not in the situations that I was in. I learned from that experience.
Mhm.
I would never allow someone to abuse me. I would never allow any of the things after witnessing what you went through.
So now I would ask you to switch to the role of your mother. Imagine you being that mother at age 9, when you were 9. And then I'm going to repeat back some of what you just said as close as I can. I won't get it perfect. And then I want you to respond as if you were your mother back then.
Yes.
Mom, I just want to thank you because you did some incredibly courageous things. You made some choices to keep us safe, and you brought people into our circle that would keep us safe. And the courage that it took for you to leave that abusive man and to protect us is still a model today that inspires me to do hard things for my children. And so I just want to thank you. I want to spend this time coming back and thanking you for both what you did to protect me, make me feel safe, but also for the model of what it means to be a strong woman. And I just wanted to come back and express that love and thank you. Then I would ask you, what would your mother say back?
Ooh, I felt that one heavy in my heart. I love you and your sister with, what is the word she used? I love you more than life itself, and I will do anything for you. I believe in you, and I will do anything to protect you. And it was really hard what I went through, but you didn't deserve what you went through. And I'll make better choices in the future for you both and for myself.
Thank you. So we go back forth a few times, and eventually I start to feel your childhood. I start to now know in that period of time what it felt like. And also what I do know about you, Amanda, from the story you chose to go back to, what I would say to you as a therapist in my program, if you were sitting there after we went through an hour and a half of this, by the way,
Yeah.
I would say it gives me a really good sense of how you, as a mother, have incorporated that idea, that courage yourself, because I hear that from you a lot, that courage. And so I understand where that strength came from. I understand part of where you get that resource from, and I can see it in you. Of course, when it comes to the hard stuff, like Dad, you abandoned me, or Mom, when you yelled at me, or whatever, that becomes really interesting, because usually the parent says something back like, it wasn't that big of a deal. That's not how it happened. You're making something out of nothing, right? So you start to hear where people get gaslit. You start to hear where people are dismissed. So you start to hear all you hear and see it and feel it.
I hate that. I'm so grateful that that's not how it was for me, because
Yeah, right.
the story after story after story of the dismissal and the not being heard. Like, my mom was terrified for her life, so that's why she stayed in the domestic abuse. The second she found I was being molested, she was out of there. Like, that was the cross. That was like, no. And it was like a very dramatic scene, like running to a taxi cab in the middle of the night with him chasing after us. It was like a whole thing, like a Lifetime movie, it kind of scene. So she did all the right things to keep us safe. And
you know what your story shows and illustrates really, really well, and this is important for people listening, is that a child only needs one adult. I mean, ideally, all the adults around them would see them and tune in and hold space for them. But in the end, what we find out in the attachment research is if there was one parent who could see the child and respond to the child's needs adequately, the child develops a sense of self that they can weather the storms of life little bit better.
My mother did what she could with what she, and she had a lot, she's done a lot of work on herself now too, but my godmother was such a force too. Like she's my angel. She was capable of, she was like my mom's big sister. My aunt, my godmother ended up being a couple after being all girls Catholic school for many years. Then they were a couple for 30 years. And then they parted ways because of my aunt's alcoholism. But my godmother was like, I go back to her core beliefs, her strong, women's rights and like all the things on me. I went back to all those things. So like the pieces that my mom couldn't hold because she was, my godmother could. So I'm very blessed.
That demonstrates also that where a parent reaches out and asks for help, that makes a huge difference for the child. That a parent can't give everything. So if they allow the child to get their needs met from somebody else, they can still give the child what they need. And your mother and your life is a great example of that.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's been such an honor to have you. Sorry about the early or technical difficulties, but if you're watching this, and you should share it with somebody because, Dr. Reedy, in my opinion, is gold. I would love to come out to you. I love Utah, first of all. You still in Utah?
Yep.
Oh, we didn't get to finish. Okay. What are the other, just share a little bit. You don't have to give them the detail, but I want to put is there a website that puts all your programs on that I can share?
Findingyouprograms.com.
Okay. I already put that on.
Yeah.
Okay. And they offer coaching,
therapy, intensives. We do workshops for conscious parenting. I do masterclass in attachment-based therapy. And then I'm doing the Art of Living Institute in the fall as part of Finding You. And I just did Omega just a week ago. So we do workshops all over the country also.
And do you have a program that people can come to? Okay.
Finding You is in Midway, Utah, just outside of Park City.
And that is for families or for people that are struggling with substance use or mental health?
Our flagship is what I would say the non-identified patient subacute care. But we do couples intensives and family intensives also. So it can involve the identified patient for sure, especially with a family intensive. That's a very common thing as the identified patient comes. And what I love is that when people come to our program, the identified patients will say to us after a day, if I knew it was going to be like this, that everybody was going to be on the hot seat and just not me, I would have come a long time ago. Or when a husband comes, as is often the case because he's dragged by his wife to do his emotional work, what he will say is, if I knew that I was going to be seen this well, I would have come to couples therapy a long time ago. So we have all of it, but our flagship is that individual, we call it Finding You, our individual Finding You program.
Are you still on a 2-year waiting list for people to see you individually?
Private clients, I'm pretty far out. Yeah. I don't have any waiting list.
Hey, God bless you. And that's a reflection of how you show up in the world, the work that you do, and the audacity to be you that you exude. And the journey of the heroic parent is that we're going to mess up somehow. So with that note, thank you so much, Brad.
Thanks, Amanda.
Forward to, more conversations like not on camera, and seeing ways to partner and collaborate and help, make impact in this world together. But you are amazing and such a great soul and really a brilliant clinician. And we both started in our adolescence and here we are today. So big round of applause for Brad. And I will, if there's anything you can go on after too, and you can write any links or anything like that too. And if you have questions when you see this one in the replay, feel free to ask questions, tag Dr. Reedy, and I'm sure he'll be happy to answer them.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining Levels Without Limits. I am Amanda Marino, owner of Next Level Wellness and Behavioral Health, and have a blessed day. Thanks for being here.